A controlling boyfriend has been sentenced to life imprisonment for murdering his girlfriend after she quizzed him about seeing other women. Kevin Mannion, 45, fatally stabbed Elinor O'Brien, 22, in the groin in a rageful and violent attacks after the couple rode in his Manchester city centre apartment on 16 August 2022. A 3-week trial at Liverpool Crown Court heard how Mannion killed Mrs. O'Brien after assaulting several times throughout their torrid 8-month relationship. Just 2 days before murdering her, Mannion, who has previous convictions for violence, stabbed Mrs. O'Brien in the breast. She had complained to police previously about being the victim of domestic abuse, but was too frightened to name Mannion as the perpetrator. Mannion called 999 just before 12:30 p.m. on August 16 after stabbing Mrs. O'Brien at his apartment in the Great Northern Tower in Watson Street. While 22-year-old Mrs. O'Brien was bleeding to death, Mannion called his solicitor and warned him to be available because he knew he was going to be arrested. Mannion initially told officers Mrs. O'Brien had been accidentally pierced by something in her belongings when he had thrown her bags at her during an argument. Then, at his murder trial, Mannion said he had no idea how Mrs. O'Brien had been injured and insisted he had found her lying in the hallway outside the flat before getting help. But a jury saw through his lies and found him guilty of murder, wounding with intent, and coercive or controlling behaviour. Mannion showed no emotion as the jury returned its unanimous verdict after a day of deliberation. Judge Neil Flewitt, Casey, told Mannion, "The only sentence that I can impose on count 1 murder on this indictment is life imprisonment. I have to determine the minimum term and I need some help from all counsel." The trial heard that, after the killing, Mannion told police he and Mrs. O'Brien had argued after she asked if he was seeing other women when he failed to respond to a number of texts. The court previously heard how Mr. Mannion called 999 to report Mrs. O'Brien's injury, telling the operator, "There's blood everywhere, she's dying, she's dying." During the call, the killer was heard repeating his fatally injured lover's name before begging 999 operators to please come. "There's blood everywhere, she's been punctured in the groin. Please come," he pleaded before the operator asks for his address. "You need to help. She's dying, she's dying. Please, 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 please come," Mannion responds before giving his address. "I'm begging you to hurry up," he adds. "She's been cut with a sharp object. She was picking her stuff up. I was throwing her stuff, telling her to get out, and something punctured her in the groin. I'm begging you to get someone here." Giving evidence, PC Luke Needham previously told the court he was called to the scene at Great Northern Tower at around 12:30 p.m. When he arrived, he said ambulance and paramedic crews were already at the scene, and they were all escorted upstairs to Mannion's flat by the concierge. The court heard. He told the court he saw a man laying over the bottom half of a person and noticed a lot of blood on the floor. He said as he got closer, it was clear the male was attempting to stem blood flowing from a wound, and he turned and said, "Thank God you are here. My first impression was that something wasn't right," he told the court. He said Mannion was sweating a lot and breathing heavily. The court also heard how minutes later Mr. Mannion made a phone call to a man named Greg, solicitor, in his phone. In the transcripts of his police interviews, the court heard how Mr. Mannion told officers that Miss O'Brien's injury was the most traumatizing thing that's ever happened in my life. He said he called his solicitor Greg and told him to be available because he knew he was going to be arrested. Mr. Mannion of Watson Street, Manchester, is also charged with wounding with intent and coercive or controlling behaviour. He denies all charges. In the weeks before he stabbed Miss O'Brien, Mannion had revealed that another woman he had been seeing had told him she was pregnant. Kevin Mannion was sentenced to life imprisonment, with a minimum of 23 years for the murder of Elinor O'Brien, wounding with intent and controlling and coercive behaviour. At the time of her death, Ms. O'Brien's friends paid tribute to her. One said, "Elinor was a beautiful young girl with the rest of her life ahead of her. She was loved by anyone who had the pleasure of meeting her. She lit up the room with her infectious smile and laughter. Many hearts have been shattered and will never be the same. R.I.P. our angel." Another woman posted on Facebook, "We will miss you, Eli, beautiful inside and out. Taken too early. May you rest in peace now."